the Brady Banks thing public knowledge?
I don't know.
Can I hold them in our thoughts? That can't be a secret. Right.
I didn't know.
Members of the Budget Committee, we will come to order. I think it only appropriate that we take a moment to do two things at the beginning of our meeting. Obviously, the first is today was the funeral and burial for John Siegenthaler that this council had the foresight and honor of, along with Mayor Dean, of honoring a couple of months ago. And we also, in addition to the Siegenthaler family, want to hold our own Brady Banks in our thoughts. His brother, I think, passed away very suddenly in the last couple of days, and he's on his way to the West Coast to that. And so I don't think we'll see Brady on the remainder of this week. So with that, why don't we just take a brief moment of just think about those for folks. Thank you. We will then come to order with first on our very abbreviated agenda today, 2014-1157, Councilman Stein appropriates a total of $2,150,000 to the 30 nonprofit organizations selected to receive funding through the Community Enhancement Grant Program. May I have a motion? Moved and seconded. Councilman Tiger.
Thank you. John, or Mr. Chair, maybe it'd be appropriate just to briefly refresh our memory on the funds and how the recipients are selected.
Mr. Cooper, you want to begin?
The budget ordinance included $2,150,000 for grants to nonprofit organizations. This is the 6th year, I believe, that this program has been in place. If you recall, prior to Mayor Dean's administration, nonprofits were specifically identified in the budget ordinance, and there wasn't any real process for vetting the organizations or deciding how much an organization should get. So when Mayor Dean came into office, he established the Community Enhancement Grant Program, where the nonprofit organizations submit applications. Those are reviewed by a committee, a citizen panel, who make recommendations to another committee that I believe the Budget and Finance Chair serves on that committee, the Vice Mayor, some representatives from the Finance Department and others, and the applications are reviewed and scored, and the awards are recommended to the council in this form to be approved by resolution. So it's based on an application process and a vetting process.
At the conclusion of the year, if an organization has received a grant, what type of scrutiny do they get?
Well, they sign a contract. Each organization signs a contract with Metro, and the Finance Department audits those every year to ensure that the funds were spent in the manner that was set forth in the contract. So that's done on an annual basis.
Well, I commend the administration. This is a much better process, and I'm very pleased with these organizations, the categories, and I trust the Citizens Committee and the Chair of Budget and Finance and others who sit on it and make these recommendations, and this is a much better process. All these are nonprofit 501c3 organizations also.
By law, they must be.
And they have audited financial statements, and everything is clearly above board and established organizations.
I believe the committee looks at that when they're scoring the applications to make sure they meet all the qualifications.
Thank you so much.
And I will say, maybe Mr. Rubin remembers, the amount that was actually requested was about 4.5 times the $2 million. So the need is obviously far greater than we can ever meet, but these folks are doing great work. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, those in favor of 1157 signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. 1157 is recommended. 1158, Councilman Stein approves a grant of $801,400 to the Health Department to provide community outreach services for enrolled children. I have a motion and a second. Are there questions or comments? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1158 is recommended. 1161, Councilman Stein, authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the lawsuit brought by Dr. Stacy Williams against a Metro Police officer for $99,000. May I have a motion for the purpose of discussion? Moved and seconded. I thought we ought to begin with an overview from our distinguished legal director, because I know that there are some questions. Mr. Solomon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This action was brought by the plaintiff in federal court under what we call a 1983 action. It's called 1983 because that's the statutory section that this is brought under. And basically, it's a violation of the plaintiff's civil rights. In essence, too much force, excessive force is used in her arrest and apprehension by the police force. But the case really has its roots in something that's been making a lot of noise, and there's a lot of concern about that throughout the state, which is babies locked in cars. This poor mother had just gone to a pediatrician's appointment, and on her way out, she was leaving the pediatrician's office, and of course, as you've read in Mr. Cooper's excellent summary, the baby accidentally got locked in the car, and the mother got very, very concerned. The fire department was called. They arrived at the scene. In the meantime, a Dr. Williams, who is the plaintiff, comes out of her office, and she sees the baby in the car, and she says, "We got to get this baby out right away." And the mother said, "That's fine, do whatever you can do." By that time, the fire department had arrived on the scene, and they called a locksmith. And Dr. Williams, who grew increasingly concerned, decided that she was going to bust out the window of the mother's car. The fire department, the mother gave permission to do that. The fire employee said, "No, we're not going to do that. We're going to wait until the locksmith comes." Dr. Williams got increasingly more agitated about it. The fire department employee in question got more and more concerned about Dr. Williams' actions, ended up calling the police for help. Then the poor police officer shows up. By that time, it was quite the scene. You had a lot of witnesses on hand, a lot of people watching. Dr. Williams getting more and more concerned and more agitated. And the police officer tried to keep things calm, tried to get Dr. Williams to walk away from the car. Dr. Williams probably resisted a little bit. Dr. Williams, my understanding, is of very small stature. Is that correct? Yeah. And so that didn't help matters. She ends up falling down to the ground with the police officer on top of her. So a very unfortunate set of circumstances there. I'm not sure the police officer really did anything, what I would say, wrong. I think he was put in a situation that was pretty difficult by that time, but he's a big person, she's a small person, she's a doctor, she was trying to do something that seemed to be the right thing, and as you read from the summary, lo and behold, the locksmith never showed up, and they ended up breaking the window anyway with the hammer. The good news is the baby is fine. Dr. Williams, I think, couldn't believe how, in her mind, how this thing was handled. Had some medical damages, but really I think it was more about how she was treated, if from my perspective, what brought this lawsuit. As you all know, that under 1983 in federal court, there is no limitation on damages. So it's unlike we have in state court where there's a tort where there's a limit on about $300,000 per person on per case. In federal court, there is no limit. Plus, if we're found liable for even $1 in this case, we would owe all of her attorney's fees. I think if you talk to Kelly, Oliver, and Derek Smith, who's in the back, who handled this case, I think, quite well. I think in their opinion, this is a case where either we're going to win or we're going to get creamed. And there's kind of no in between. And so we decided we tried to seek settlement on really Kelly and Derek's advice. They're the ones closest to the case, and I think they came up with a very good settlement considering what could have happened. So that's pretty much introductions. That's satisfactory.
I would hang on to the microphone if I were you. Vice Chairman Pridemore.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Solomon, does this resolve the federal lawsuit?
Yes, resolves all matters.
What about the fire department? I mean, did they, has any kind of policy change come out of this? I mean, there should be something. They stood there and ended up doing what exactly they were asked to do.
I believe the captain's here. Is that correct? Chief
The chief is
Chief
here.
White. Okay.
Chief White, with you.
Yes, what was the question again now?
As a result of this, has there been any type of policy change or involving breaking a window, or when requested that when a child in a hot car? Obviously, this is, again, a hot topic throughout the state.
Chief, if you would, pull the microphone up a little bit. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yes, policy changes are in effect on July 15th of this year. I had heard about this when it happened. I believe it was May 15th of 2012. At that particular time, I was doing another assignment. I got the details of it last week, and we've immediately started to do things differently. We've got a generic forcible entry policy, and it states in there verbatim, if the property owner says to make entry, we don't question it. We're going to do it as safely as we can. Also, I think it's very, very necessary so something like this doesn't happen again. Just because we have a policy doesn't mean that someone's not going to forget that policy. And so we're going to be doing awareness training by the end of the summer to make sure that everybody under my command in the Nashville Fire Department is going to be made aware of the temperature differential between ambient temperature outside a vehicle, ambient temperature inside that vehicle, and other things that we can do as far as facilitating the good health of people.
Thank you.
Councilman Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have asked quite a few questions to different people and made several telephone calls, and I'll let others do the talking, and the chief and I have talked, and others. The only thing I would say that congratulations to those lawyers who handle this. And Saul, will you introduce the two lawyers that handle this?
Yeah, Kelly Oliver, who's one of our senior attorneys, and Derek Smith, who by title is not a senior attorney, but by wisdom certainly is.
Well, I just wanted the council to know who they were. Nobody's happy with this, and to some extent, there's plenty of blame to go around. But if you dig deep enough, you can pretty much find out where the blame lies, and that's not going to help the situation. But these two individuals have done their job well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilwoman Moore.
Just a quick question. I just wanted to know, I didn't see in here whether Mr. Solomon, you said that the officer did not really do anything wrong. Is he on leave or anything at this point?
Is Captain Hagar,
Councilwoman, no, the officer's not on leave.
So there was no fault at all?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Tigert.
I want to echo Councilman Garrett's praise for Derek and Kelly. I told you, Saul, there's no one been more questioning and critical of some of our settlements, but I knew it couldn't have been you that negotiated this great a settlement, so I knew there had to be something behind the scenes. But we as a city should be thankful that this isn't a lot worse, because this is some of the worst judgment I've ever seen anybody. Now, maybe there are circumstances out in the field that you don't know about, but I just can't imagine. 30 minutes ago, I was standing in line getting my car tags renewed, actually truck tags, and CNN, the headline scrolling across the screen over at the Fulton campus was rising concern about kids in hot cars. I can't imagine for the 20 or 30 minutes or whatever time elapsed that we'd allow this to go on. But so I appreciate your staff doing what they did. Chief White, we heard that no disciplinary action was given to the police officer. Of course, from what we read, he came upon a scene where you've got a woman swinging a hammer and a fireman trying to restrain and not knowing what's going on. But was any disciplinary action given to your employee that caused this situation in the first place?
To the best of my knowledge, no, sir.
Why?
There hasn't been any disciplinary action given by me. As I said earlier, this happened, and I'm not trying to slop my responsibility off on previous administrations. But I think one thing that you have to practice with discipline is consistency. And part of that consistency as far as discipline is going to be the timeliness of it. I don't know what good it would do if I put some discipline out there to this individual now with such a time lag behind there. And I'm certainly not trying to protect anyone that may have made a bad decision.
Well, I can understand that, and we have had several administrations, I guess, both interim and permanent since that time, but, you know, I worry to the citizens of Nashville what kind of message it sends that we have a ranking officer out there leading a team that would have such a lapse in judgment at this stage, and how a person like that can retain his or her position. And I don't even want to know who it is. Maybe my best friend. But how anyone could have a lapse of judgment like that and still be at the same position, the same salary, not be docked a day of pay, not anything, I just can't understand that. So I guess I would just ask you, I understand the timeliness, I understand the position it's put you in, but I think we need to look at it from the position of the citizens of Nashville. If we have someone in a leadership position that makes that bad a decision of judgment, there ought to be some repercussions, especially when taxpayers are on the hook for $199,000, and in reality, it's a wonder if it's not $2 million.
Well, one thing I did after I found out about this last week, the details of it, I checked to see if there were any special reports that had been requested and any that had been turned in. I found none of those. Now, one thing I am going to do to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen in the future, those special reports are going to be forthcoming, and we'll talk with everybody involved with it. But to the rational person, I know this is terrible. By the same token, I do my darndest not to second-guess my field personnel. I haven't had an opportunity to talk to those field personnel, but I will talk to them and get some facts on our side.
Sure.
Not defending us, but the facts that I need to have.
Ms. Solon, are the depositions or comments made by this particular individual public record? I'm sure there was a period of discovery or questioning and whatnot. I'd like to know, is there any remorse? Is there any indication that if I had to do this over again, I'd do it an entirely different way?
I'm going to let Kelly speak to that, Councilman.
And Councilman Taggart, I can't really read somebody's mind, and I won't speak for whether Captain Rodriguez has any remorse. I believe to this day he believes he handled this the way he should have handled it.
Wait, say that again?
I believe that he feels that she was interfering with his scene and that...
We have a baby locked in a car, and an individual with hindsight looking back thinks it's okay to leave a baby in a locked car for 20 plus or however many minutes it is?
I'm not defending that mindset.
I understand. I'm not beating up on you.
I know. I'm just saying that the deposition transcript indicates that Captain Rodriguez believes that he was doing the right thing and that he believed Papa Locke would be there shortly and that was the easiest way to open the window, and just because it didn't turn out that way, he's not necessarily second-guessing his own judgment.
Chief, do you have a comment based on that testimony?
Personally, I feel like I'm in the position of defending the indefensible. And I'm not making light of that.
No, I understand. I appreciate your honesty.
All I can say is I take responsibility and accountability for everything that happens in the Nashville Fire Department. And you do have my promise that we're going to correct these issues.
And I trust you implicitly to do that. I would like, Kelly and Saul, if we could get a copy of that deposition and provide that to the chief if he hadn't seen it. And, you know, to me, there's a lesson that all you got to do is look. And if someone is not apologizing in there, then there's a lesson the whole department needs to learn. Mr. Chair, my final question has to do for someone at the finance or purchasing department. Obviously, there was a contract or some reason that this particular locksmith was called. Can we know the circumstances why this locksmith is called, and we still have a contract with this particular locksmith?
We can, certainly amongst us, we can find that out, can we not? No contract?
We had a contract.
the heads are shaking that no one thinks we have a contract with them. They were just the ones that were called. But we certainly, Chief, it might be helpful if you might investigate that for us, find out in this specific instance whether the locksmith...
To the best of my knowledge, there's not an existing contract with Papa-Lock.
So how would an engine out there on the scene know to call this particular company and have the phone number and the contact and the feeling that this company would have the track record to adequately perform the job?
I think it's just through an informal message service, let me put it that way.
I think some of our retired officers over here may have a better answer.
You know the fire department policy on locksmiths, Councilman Pardue?
The policy on any locksmith or anything else where the dispatcher calls them, like a cab or anything, is they can ask you if you know of a locksmith, and you can give them 2 or 3 names of a locksmith, and they make up their mind who to call. Papa-Lock, I've called them, and a lot of times in the middle of the day, it can take 2 or 3 hours to get to you, and they should have knew that.
Mr. Reedman, is this something that we as a city, if there is need for this type of service for our police and fire and emergency personnel, should we have a vetted process to identify qualified companies that will give us standards that we as a city would expect?
I would respectfully ask the police and fire department if they think that's something they need, then we'll run it through procurement. I don't know the answer to that without getting some input from them, but we'll check into it, obviously.
Well, we got 2 semi-respected members here that say it's not unusual for 3 hours.
No, but the finance department wouldn't necessarily know the police and fire, so...
Yeah, I'm just saying from a purchasing standpoint, there's a flaw in the system that if I'm out there in the field and I'm relying on a baby in a locked, heated car, a company that may show up or may not show up based on somebody knows this company or saw them drive by at one point. I mean, there's something wrong with that system, and we as a city can and should and expect to do better.
Right, and I think my understanding of what Mr. Riebling says is he will visit with the fire and police department about their policies, and we will take a look at that, and we initiate that. Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman Claiborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Most of my questions have been answered. I do have one question for the chief. Apparently, the mother said, "Break the window of my car." So you've said that you're addressing changes in policies, and you've already instituted that as of the last few days. But at the time this happened, do you know, was there any kind of policy in place to address the owner of a vehicle requesting the breakage of a glass to get in or not? Or was this just this officer's judgment at this point in time that he made this call because he's in charge of this call?
Fireman, not officer.
Fireman, okay. Thank you.
Well, he's a fire officer, but he's a captain. But at that point in time, there was not a specific policy addressing this aspect of forcible entry. Policies had been proposed in the past. They never got to fruition. But this policy we have now is a generic policy, and it should cover any forcible entry incident that we need to respond to.
Okay. Chief, if you wouldn't mind, I think the council would appreciate seeing what that policy is. If you might send a copy to our staff director and they could send it to us.
Okay, I'll do that via email. I'll send that to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, no problem.
Councilman Claiborne?
So prior to the 15th, I think is the date that you gave?
15th of 2012, May 15th.
I mean, the policy change.
Prior to July 15th, no, sir.
Right. Prior to July the 15th, any situation like this, if a owner had said, it's okay to break my glass, then it would have been up to the fireman officer in charge to make a decision, I'm going to do this or not. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Weiner.
I too have had a lot of my questions already answered, but I'd have one question, one comment. Question's probably directed to you, John, maybe you, Saul. Is there any reason why our firefighters and our police officers cannot carry the implement that is required to unlock somebody's door, and if that somebody, given maybe this mother, said, it's okay, go ahead and open my door for me, open the window, you wouldn't have had to wait on a locksmith, you wouldn't have had to break somebody's window. Is there something out there that says we cannot?
I don't know of any legal reason or liability issue why that would be a problem. That would just be a departmental policy, I would think.
Would that be something that you guys would entertain?
Well,
That would solve the
presently
problem.
on our rescue companies and many of our engine companies, we carry a tool called a Slim Jim. It's just a thin piece of metal. It's got a little hook milled out on it. And depending on the type of vehicle, it works very well. Now, one thing that I've noticed when I was in the field several years ago, they work a lot better than they do on the newer vehicles because part of new car manufacturing is to prevent theft through people using things like this.
Councilmember Weiner, they did try to use the Slim Jim initially and were not successful.
And there's no other tool besides the Slim Jim that would
There may be.
offer that?
Usually the reason you call a locksmith, though, is to actually go through the lock. You know, to use their expertise to open the lock up without doing any damage.
It just seems to me it would solve a lot of problems if we were able to facilitate something like that. So my second part is, you know, everybody needs to be taught a lesson, and we really want to take lemons and make lemonade. And so in this case, it sounds like your captain needs to learn from his mistake, and whether or not he has, what is the potential for us taking that and opening something up to the community to raise awareness of the importance of what you do if, God forbid, something like this happens?
Well, one of the training products I would like to see produced, and I did say we were going to do awareness training for the whole department, but I want to produce a video on this and have the people that were out there on that scene that day to participate in this video to show you the proper way to do it. I consider that positive reinforcement.
Could you then take that video and show it in community gatherings around town?
Yes, ma'am. It's going to be made with city dollars, and it's public domain as far as I'm
Like a PSA?
concerned.
That'd be great.
We'll be glad to do that.
That's exactly where I was going, so that makes good sense. That's all I have, Chair.
Councilman Pardue.
Yep. You know, a few years ago, before everybody got so lawsuit scared, you know, we give a police officer a gun and send him out on the street with authority to take a life if that's what he had to do. It bothers me when we get to the point when we ain't got enough damn guts to break a window to save a kid's life or even help the kid. And it's like the Slim Jim, they're with the new side airbags that they put in car doors now. We've had officers killed around the country where they'll stick a Slim Jim in, puncture the bag, and it shoots it back out into their face. I understand that, but we can't, police or firemen, they can't even give somebody a boost on the side of the road anymore because it blow up batteries or cause fires and stuff, and they sue the police or fire or whoever does it. It's just got to the point where the officers and the firemen, they don't feel any trust. They get suspended if something like that, if they blow up a battery or something, they get suspended, and every time they get suspended now, I understand they take their gun badge away from them. I almost understand not wanting to do nothing, but this is just a case of gutlessness that somebody there didn't break the window. And when they say that the fireman and the lady was wrestling over a hammer, that makes it even more goofy. If they had a hammer break the damn window, it don't take but a second, and I don't think he'd have went to jail for doing that. And I think we've talked about this enough. We're going to lose it.
Oh, no, sir, we have not yet. Councilman Bedney, you're recognized.
Thank you. So,
Yes, sir.
But do they are coordinated if there's a dog in the car or there's anything but a child, and then for whatever reason an owner of a vehicle is asking for assistance in getting into the car, we know that we don't want to allow somebody to rob a car by misleading the police, but is there any way to have them carry some kind of a release or some kind of a document that would release the police or the fire department from any harm, and they can assist an owner that is in distress?
It'll be difficult only in that if somebody's under extreme duress, then there's an argument that signed a piece of paper would not be enforceable. And I think as a matter of, you'd really have to talk to the two chiefs about that. I think as a practical matter, somebody needs some help and you're going to say, well, before I help you, you have to sign your release. I think it'll be a difficult thing for them to do. So there's both legal and practical concerns. I think the chief wants to say something.
I was going to say our new policy pretty much absolves our employees of any risk of that. Just the part of it where it says that the property owner is there and they say force entry, be it a vehicle, a structure, or whatever. As far as the department is concerned, they're following policy, so there would be no repercussions.
Councilman Pridemore.
Thank you, Chair, and I apologize having to speak again, but blame my investigative side in me. Did the police officer, was he ever asked to take action in breaking the window, or was he just, who was or following the command of the fire department?
He was not asked to do that. He was not even sure when he got there the status of the child in the car. He was called to respond to an unruly bystander on the scene. And he was never asked to actually involve himself in the extraction of the child.
So his main focus remained on the unruly
He was
doctor.
responding to the information that was given to him, correct?
Yes. He got to the scene, one of the paramedics says, we have a threatening woman with a hammer, she's got to be removed so we can do our jobs. And that's where
And
the officer's
never
focus was.
asked why she was threatening.
He eventually learned that she wanted to get the baby out of the car, but he was not certain as to whether that had happened yet or what was sort of going on the side. So he did learn while they were moving down the sidewalk that she wanted to get the baby out, but he didn't know if she was really who she was or whether the baby was already out of the car. He was just taking her away from the scene because the paramedic said, we can't do our jobs if you don't remove her, and she's got a hammer and she's been threatening us.
So he basically was an agent for the fire department.
I think he thought he was trying to assist them with an extraction, yes.
All right. Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, those in favor of recommending 1161 signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. 1161 will be recommended. Two bills on second reading. 823. Council members Holloman, Stein, and Tigert approves a participation agreement between Metro Parks and the Cumberland River Compact for the removal of the low dam in the Richland Creek at McCabe Golf Course. Moved in a second. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, those in favor of recommending 823 say aye. Opposed, no. 823 is recommended. 824, Council members Garrett and Matthews, designates Old Clarksville Pike between Whites Creek Pike and Eatons Creek Road as Keaton's Cut Place. Councilman Garrett moves approval. Is there's a second? Discussion or comments? Seeing none, those in favor of recommending 824 say aye. Opposed, no. 824 is recommended, and we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah.